Do you wonder if others are dealing with the same project management challenges as you? Not sure where to turn for guidance and leadership? Office hours are in session as we discuss project management and PMOs with global leaders, hearing their story and learning their secrets to success. Our goal is to empower you and help you elevate your PMO and project management career to new heights. Welcome back to Project Management Office Hours with your host, PMO Joe.
Welcome, everyone. Project Management Office Hours is now live streaming as well as being live radio. So we're the #1 live radio show in the U.S. about project management. And we're broadcasting to you from the Phoenix Business RadioX studios in Tempe, Arizona. I'm your host, PMO Joe, and for the next hour or so, we're going to be talking project management with our special guest. Before we get into that, just for everybody out there, this is our first live stream effort of the show. So we're streaming live, hopefully, on LinkedIn Live and YouTube right now. So if we have any technical challenges, apologize in advance. And we welcome any comments you have. So as you're listening in live and you have any input or questions for myself or Nigel, please add them in, and we'll work to hit those up during the show. Also, of course, want to say Happy New Year to everybody. First show of the new year, and also our first show of our 5th season. I cannot believe I've been doing this for 5 years now. This is show number 95, which means in just a couple of months, we're going to hit 100 shows. Wow. I hard to believe from where we started that we're still doing this. But it's been a lot of fun. We're excited for the year. We have a lot of great guests planned. Of course, we're keeping it international. We've got an international guest today. And then throughout the year, we've got guests that we're confirming from Australia, South Africa, Germany, Spain, Ukraine, U.S., of course, and many other locations around the world. So I also want to say thank you to our sponsors, right? If we didn't have sponsors, none of this would be possible. They help us pay for all the technology and the studio time. So thank you to the PMO Squad and the PMO Leader. The PMO Squad is the leading PM and PMO consulting firm in the U.S., and they can assist you with any of your agile project management or PMO consulting needs, which would include project rescue, establishing or improving your PMO, staffing any agile or project management resources, and really anything related to project management. That's all we do is project management activities. So if you have a project management challenge that you're trying to work through, reach out to the PMO Squad. So that's enough of the intros. Let's do welcome here to our first guest of the year, Nigel Creaser. Welcome, Nigel.
Thanks, Joe. Great to be on it.
So if you could take a moment, Nigel, introduce yourself to our guests and let them all know who you are, just a little bit about yourself.
No worries. I'm Nigel Creaser. I am in the UK, in a little village called Pant. Don't make your own jokes on that, please. It's just on the Welsh border. I'm very lucky where I live. I've been a project manager I'm knocking on the door of 30 years, across a number of different industries and different technologies. IT is my area. Formerly, I was an accountant. I described myself as a failed accountant. Got the chance around year 2000 to jump across into IT because they were paying more, and they gave me a line back to go into finance if I wanted to again, but I stayed there. So basically been project management for ages. And a while back, I decided to author a couple of books. It was Peter Taylor's fault, I think, and recently published my 4th book on project management, along with me having a podcast, which Joe kindly came on, one of my first guests back in 2019, which does seem like a long time ago now. I've been enjoying podcasting as well. I go by the name of the Sunday Lunch Project Manager.
Well, it's fantastic to have you join us, and it was great to have time on your show and to go through your scenario. And I think that's what's great about our industry is there are plenty of shows out there with a different format that really allow our our industry to get different perspectives on who some of the people are in our industry, what our experiences are, and really learn more about the people, because I think ultimately project management is really about people. So having a show like yours is fantastic for everybody as well.
I do enjoy the interviews. I must say, it's you find some very challenging and some very surprising things in it. I think one of my guests grew up in Turkey during a lot of disturbance, the war sort of time around there. And one of my questions I always ask people on my show is about what did they want to be when they grew up as a kid, and lots of different things. Fireman, a pilot, or different answers that I've had over times, and he just said he wanted to be safe.
Wow.
And that was what he wanted to be as he grew up, and kind of made me take a pause on me living where I live, and never been experienced to that kind of in my life. I've been very lucky, I suppose. But it's great having that. You've got your show as well with I find that you kind of mix it through the different kind of specialist topics and a bit of a mixing. I like that. Sometimes I think someone talked to me about whether you do the show as or the format that I chose, rather than doing technical content, which, to be honest, I wouldn't be as good as some of the people who are out there. There's some fantastic podcasts out there, so why try and do it better when they're doing it brilliantly? And I just kind of and I like to chat, and I kind of difficult to stop me chatting. So I thought, let's have a nice long form one and let people chat.
Yeah. I love it. I think if I'm remembering back to the show, the question of what did I want to be when I grew up, I think I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player, if I remember my answer correctly.
I think that's right, yeah.
And unfortunately, now that I'm in my mid 50s, that's no longer possible. But
if you can dream it, you can achieve it.
Yeah,
sure.
Maybe. I think it'd be a nightmare now if I tried it rather than a dream.
One of the things that similar, sort of not similar, but when I was a kid, I used to do judo, and I stopped when I was about 18. And in my early 40s, after watching the Olympics in London, I got inspired to step back on a mat on that, and started learning again and kind of starting from scratch. I've not looked back at them, and it was quite useful in the fact that there's a really rich veterans and masters scene, and there's not thousands of people in there, but there's enough for it to be good enough that you don't have to qualify a great deal. You have to be of a certain level, but you don't have to go around qualifying to get in. So I'm able to enter sort of international competitions. As long as I've got enough cash and the travel budget to get there, I can enter it. So I'm quite enjoying that, reliving my dreams of maybe being an athlete, which I kind of didn't have at the time. So it's never too late. You always find something.
Yeah, I love that. So the podcast is the Sunday Lunch Project.
Yes.
Where does that name come from?
It's a book I haven't written. I blame Peter Taylor.
Let's blame Peter.
Yeah, I think most of the
hopefully he's not listening. We can tell him afterwards.
Yeah, well, I'm sure if he'd seen me, he would have thought I won't listen to that. Peter, when he wrote The Lazy Project Manager, and I read that book, I saw him speak, and I was kind of inspired by the fact that the way he'd written, which was not irreverent, but a more light-hearted but informative book, rather than a thick procedural tome that was traditionally sort of books that I'd seen around management, project management, etc. And he made it really accessible about what were really important things to do when you're a project manager. And I really read the book and went, yeah, that makes absolute sense what he's put there. And I kind of just had it in my head of that I wanted to write something from years ago when I was a kid. And I just thought, yeah, there's Sunday Lunch Project. And I came up with an idea. And it's a book. I'll probably tell people about it, but so it's basically the concept is it's a bit of a parable, or a little bit of a, I can't remember what the word, parable, a funny parable, bit of a laugh, bit of a giggle. You can see my little hashtag on there. Project management is funny, and it's supposed to be a humorous book, but I started looking at it, looking to do it, and discovered I'd never written a book before and didn't know what to do. And it was bigger than I thought it would be and harder than I thought it would be. And it's still sitting there on where I've got behind me somewhere a sheet of paper with all of the mind map that I drew out for it. And then I started, started thinking that's a brand. I quite like the idea. It's a brand idea. And rather than getting on writing a book, I sort of played around with ideas and branding. And at that time, I also came up with the idea of my first book that I did, which was When I Were a Project Manager, which is a kind of take on the For Yorkshire sketch from Monty Python. I think it was before Monty Python, but Monty Python made it famous. And it's 4 project managers sat in a little sketch talking about how they had it hard when they were a project manager, which is actually available either at 77p or you can sometimes get it free on Amazon. If you Amazon Kindle, you can get it free there. It's only a 25 pages thing, but hopefully it'll bring a smile and a bit of recognition to people. So I wrote that book in kind of to learn how to do it and learn how to publish, learn how to get through the processes and get all that. Did that, and then came up with another idea. Thought I really enjoyed doing these, and I thought I'd do a few sketches and songs. And that's what the second book I did, project management sketches, which took a long time. So all of these, it kind of just my technique of procrastination, I suppose, of stopping myself doing the Sunday lunch project, the harder one in some ways. So that's where it all came from. And then I had these 2 books, and I had some people buying some of them, but not many. And so I thought, I'll one of the songs in the second book is called The 12 Days of Project. And I decided one day with me and my girls, we sat and we recorded. I have 2 daughters, and it was a few years ago now, and we recorded it just on my phone. And I decided I was going to push that out. And I put it out on the first episodes of the podcast. You'll see the early ones is just that. It's just day 1, day 2, leading up to Christmas at that time of that year. And then I started using it to say, well, I've got this book. Would you like to buy this book? Would you like to buy it? So I was screaming into the internet saying, buy my book, without much value being added on top of that, other than me kind of talking. And then I thought, there was a few things happened at work, and I kind of thought, if I'm going to do this, I need to do it properly. And on the podcast, and I thought, I really want to make something. I want to do something with it. And so I started interviewing people. I thought, right, who do I know? I'd been in touch with Peter and talked to Peter before, and I thought, ping him a message on LinkedIn. So, Peter, can you come and pop onto the podcast, and can we have a chat about you? And the idea was to talk about people's background, how they got into project management, why they got into project management, what other projects they're in. As I say, I was a failed accountant and kind of drifted into project management, and as many of us are. Although I have met people nowadays who are they're leaving, they're going into university or into college and learning specifically project management degrees, which was non-existent when I was around. It wasn't even a career that I did.
Yeah, same for
that's
me.
It really. It's a bit of a long answer to that question, but that's the Sunday Lunch Project became my brand by default. And one day I will write the book, just so that it completes the circle, if you like. But I was stuck with it there. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I know it's a nice, catchy name. I like it as well. So you've been doing this for a while, as I have. So when you talk to all of these people, I always say that for me, these are mentoring sessions, right? And they're unintentional mentoring sessions where I get the best of some of the best PM and PMO leaders in the world I get to talk to. What are some of the takeaways you've had over the years from your guests that have really stuck with you and have maybe influenced the way that you operate?
There are so many. I think, as I said before, to think of contextualizing my life growing up. And it's not always about project management that I pick up on these things. It's more about lots of experiential things and how people have got into project management. I think the thing that the mentoring sessions are great. It's difficult. I've got a little board that I've stuck stuff on my wall where I've got. There was a conversation about the Wright brothers arguing. I can't remember who that was now, and it struck me with that one was that they were arguing, but they saw it as a positive thing. They were really arguing, and someone had interrupted them about arguing. It's kind of, no, that's how we work. That's how we get together. And sometimes different people's styles and tools and techniques that they use to move forward are different. There was things like fail fast and learn quickly, those sort of things that came out of there from different conversations. And I think the people, sorry, I keep looking up at my invisible board as I feel. It just, I think people, the richness of the project management experience, and kind of how a lot of the time it is, what a lot of time, all the time, you said it earlier on, people are what deliver projects. Processes don't deliver projects, whilst they're absolutely critical. They don't deliver the projects. Your IT system that you're managing it in doesn't deliver projects. It's the people who deliver it. It's the people who make it successful. And if you don't focus on the people, then it won't. It just doesn't happen, essentially.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of key things there's just so many people have picked up through that, and every single one of them I come away with something that either makes me think differently or gives me a completely different point of view to how I would have been approached something. I think I was talking to Gerald Leonard last year, and I'm a bass. Well, I say I'm a bass player. I have a bass guitar that I can make noises out of. I played when I was in a band when I was a teenager, like many of us did. And then I had Gerald Leonard come on, who's a professional jazz bass player.
Oh, that must have been fun.
Yeah, it was. And you know what? Idiot that I am. I didn't ask him to play on the podcast.
Oh,
he sent me I had some music in. I should have had it. His bass was there. I don't know. My brain was, maybe I was just too starstruck or something. But Gerald's a project manager as well. Yeah, so that's what he does. He's a professional bass player and a project manager. And he talked about the fact that bass playing, you'll get people will, or musicians, say, it's a general, when you're performing live in front of an audience, a very small proportion of what you do as a musician. And we as consumers, we see that when they're up on stage, that's when we see them, that's where they get all the glory. And then behind that is years of practice, and continued practice, honing, training, thinking of new ideas, playing around with different things. And just, whether it's 5% or whatever, it's such a small part of it. And a lot of the time, like the analogy with project management then is where you get your project kickoffs, which can be great fun. You can get there, you're all excited, you have something new, you're trying to work it out, you're in a room or you're in a virtual room trying to work out, right, what does this mean? How are we going to do this? What are the problems, risks? And it's quite a lot of energy in that part of the delivery. And then right at the end, when you're all like, right, I'm ordering pizzas, let's all get there, let's get this delivery over the head, or if it's a different industry, it's cutting the tape or whatever, there's a big celebration kind of feel, celebratory feeling, a lot of adrenaline again, and you get all that buzz. But in between is when the project gets delivered. Like, you need a good start and you need that good, but that's that bit in the middle where, we need to check the finance, we need to check it. That's when, and it's actually not the most exciting thing that we do. And the same with the bass player, sitting there on piano. My daughter, my family, my daughter and my wife all play piano, who's been piano tonight. Doing scales isn't the most exciting thing that they like doing. Playing the tunes that they like to play and what they like doing. But you've got to go through the scales to be able to do that. And it's the same sort of thing, following all the disciplines, all the QA stuff, all the things. Now, some people like all of those things as well. It just depends on your nature. But that was something I thought just struck me there, is that, like, we are project managers, we are performers. We perform at the beginning, we perform at the end, and then we've got all this stuff in the middle, which we've got to keep going as well.
Yeah, last year I was out on a walk listening to AC/DC, my favorite band, and had them on my playlist. And as I was listening on the walk, I started like taking their lyrics and saying, man, this is like the life of a project manager, right? You know, like it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, right? And same for a project manager, right? You start out as a coordinator and work your way up. And so I eventually wrote this essay and put it all to music to describe the 4 acts of project lights. It used the different AC/DC songs. I think I put like 60 different songs together and ended up having it be kind of an essay, because that's what we are, right? We are entertainers, right? We have to be able to deal with people, and sometimes you're out there with your torn blue jeans, and sometimes you're not, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And I think I've learned more non-project management stuff, right? The human interaction, talking with Ruth Pearson, Carol Osterweel, and Steve Fulmer, and Dr. Barbara Troutline, and so many others about the interaction of people and how they interact, and all of that has been really kind of amazing.
Yeah, I got introduced to I had Ruth on my podcast as well, which was great. And I had a model that I've been using for many years now, called the DISC model. I got introduced to it way back in a book about positive personality profiles, and it's a really simple model where you have a 4-part grid: people are outgoing, reserved, people who are task orientated or people orientated. You kind of got 4 behavioral styles that we default to, and I've always used that as a really good model for. And can I swear on this show, or do you prefer me not to?
It's live, whatever you want to go with, man.
I will. You can imagine the word I use. It helped me work out why other people think I'm an idiot. Yeah. So and it's you can insert whichever expletive you like. And basically, I realized that it was the way they have a different behavioral style, they have a different communication style, a different character style. And when dealing with me, who's someone who can be at the complete opposite to them, I sit there going, that's why they don't like me. And that's why I think they're an idiot. And as soon as you get that, you can go, oh, man. And by the same virtue, the stuff that Ruth talks about the different strengths you've got, and how you can see why people who've got certain strengths are being asked to do something that is against their strength, isn't one of their strengths. And you've got someone else who's got that strength, and you're not asking them to do it, and building a team together like that. It's just so powerful today. And I had Liz Hobbs, she's a UK consultant who does DISC profile and DISC training around that. And I think there's a guys over in the US called managertools.com. They have a great podcast that I listen to. Don't want to advertise other people's podcasts, but it's good. Can't get away from it. And I started listening to that, and they use that a lot in their model for improving management as a general management tool.
Absolutely. Hey, well, let's talk about you mentioned books earlier, but you have a new book that came out just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit, right? Productivity hacks for project managers.
Yeah.
What was the genesis of that?
So it was, well, you talk about getting inspiration from your podcast list. A long time back, I started doing a couple of posts around automation improvement, sort of productivity improvement things from a blog, and I never got around to finishing them. There was bits of it in there. It was using some of the IFTT stuff and things like that, and trying to just add some of the automatic things with your phone just to simplify life a little bit. And I thought, well, this has got a bit more legs in it. I could do more with it maybe, but I never did anything. And then probably a year, 18 months later, I was interviewing Sarah Hogan back in September 2019. I think she's on my show in March, I think it was. I put it on. And we were talking about productivity. And during that conversation, I remembered we talked about different things that I've done, different things I've learned from other people, I've shared with other people, and went through a number of conversations on that. And it kind of sparked my interest of, I still got that idea. And actually, a lot of the tips and the hacks in there, I'd use hacks because I'm trying to think of what the latest brand would be on it. Is it tips? We talked on another show, and tips is a bit soft. Hacks, sorry guys, it's a bit American for me as I'm British, but and shortcuts doesn't sound right. So it's a quite difficult thing to choose what you're going to call it. But I decided a lot of those ideas that I've been used over the years, I spent time with people who worked with me, people who worked for me, and people I worked for as customers as well, and managers, saying, well, I do this, and like maybe dealing with email or dealing with notifications and things like that. And there's a number of different sections in there. And I just decided, well, I can help one person by telling them I can help 2 people, maybe 10 people. And the idea was, well, if I write it, put it down in the book, more people can learn how to use it. I might get a bit of cash because I'm not fully philanthropic. It might be a way to make a little bit of money. And I quite enjoyed the process as well. I do enjoy the process of starting with the idea, creating a book and getting it through. And it is very much like a project. The start of it's really exciting. You start designing covers and playing around with that. Start writing out your idea. And I recorded it all because I did a lot of it using dictation. And then found that the editing after it's been dictating is hard because Microsoft or Otter, whatever you use, doesn't hear you very well. And there's some quite rude corrections that I had to put in there that had come out a bit weird. And that bit in the middle then, from that editing and getting it through and pushing it through, that again, it was hard. But that's where the work went in until the end when, press the button, right, that's going out now. And then started doing a bit more of the harder bit of marketing and promotion, which part of what I hassled you to get on the show, isn't it? Yeah. But that's why I wanted to do it. And thank you, Sarah, if you're listening to this, for being that inspiration for me.
Especially in this new world, right, where we're interacting with COVID, where we have to be remote and finding different ways to be more efficient and to be able to work with our teams, especially being remote teams and everything. I can imagine that catching on some productivity and technology hacks would be fantastic. How many of them are in the book, right? Is it, I think it's 11 of them, right? If I'm remembering right?
You're absolutely right. There's 11. And as you're a metal fan, from the sound of it, I imagine you've watched Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
So it was a conscious reason to have these productivity hacks go up to 11 rather than 10. Just for my own amusement, really, more than anything else.
Sure.
I kind of wanted it to be at that. And it's aside from the inspiration from Sarah, I think that the idea of this book is, if it helps someone get out of the office half an hour earlier, or it helps someone have half an hour lunch that they're not normally getting, or if it helps them be half an hour more productive each day, that means they can drive their career forward, then that I'd be chuffed that if someone can do that. And I think that there are the 11 ideas. They're not actually rocket science. They are just tools and tips I've used. Maybe the approach, and maybe people pick up the ideas that I've got on there. So, like from notifications on your phone and your desktop, to scheduling email, to using Outlook rules. I think if anyone picks up the book and only uses the Outlook rules tool, but when I discovered it, I thought it was an absolute amazing tool to be able to use, to be able to go, right, when an email comes in, deal with it. And I think it's the thing that we don't realize is we've all got full inboxes, and we've all got to go, right, I got to deal with that. I've got to read all those emails. And actually, that's impossible. And it doesn't necessarily align with your objectives and your goals or whatever you're trying to do. And then you take that and you go, okay, fine. So if I'm not going to read all of them, if you accept that point, right, how do I decide which ones to read? Because the data that we've got to make that decision is when it came in, who's it from, what's the title? I'm holding my hands up here, not high enough for the camera. What's the title? Maybe if it's got an attachment, if someone else has tagged it as important, or put a time on it. It's not, and all of those data points aren't necessarily aligned with your objectives. Even the title may not relate to what the question is in the email. Because how many times have we seen emails where you get an email sent to you, it's gone to someone else, been forward, copy, forward, copy. And then someone said, yeah, but what about this? And then the next train of conversation goes on. And what you actually get in front of you, you think, well, that's to do with, oh, God, that's important. It's to do with this month's major release. Open it up. Where's the coffee cups? What? someone else has taken it off, maybe not that extreme. There are other emails you might get from someone senior, very, very senior, and it might be that it says, yeah, somebody's moved or not washing up their teaspoons. Can you sort out the teaspoons? It doesn't need to be dealt with straight away. If you missed it, as long as you aren't the person who's doing it, it probably doesn't matter. But again, your data points are limited. And one of the things I did many years ago was all of my copied emails, when anyone copies me in an email, it gets moved to a separate folder called CC. And I read it sometimes. And I tell people, I don't read the copied emails. Why? I may not read them. You won't get them dealt with. I prioritize them. Now, the risk is there that, well, what if in that CC someone senior or someone important, or something important is in there? Well, I may have missed it anyway in the morass of other things that I'll be looking at and going, well, which one do I choose? I might have chosen all of the admin type ones instead of the important ones because I've got limited data to make that decision on. And so that's one of the things I did. That's the first thing I did. And there's a risk, right? There is a risk. And you can put filters on it and say with the Outlook tools and just go, right, okay, unless it's from my boss, key customer, key staff, key family members, moving to the CC. And that removes some of the risk. But there's always a risk of you missing an email. How many times have we got things where people pick up the phone 5 minutes after you've sent them the email, they've sent you the email, say, have you read it yet? Well, no, there's 100 other ones sitting there, 1,000. And what it does, it does that prioritization management automatically for you in a more effective way than you can do it otherwise. And then you can move on. There's a whole bunch of other stuff you can start doing with it. And when you start using it, you start going, hang on. So a while back, I started with meeting invites. Now, sometimes I need to deal with them quickly because someone's sending me a late change to a meeting invite, which isn't very good practice. But other times, most of the time, I don't need to accept an invite within 5 minutes of it arriving in my inbox. I don't need to accept an invite even that day sometimes. So I move them off to a separate page. I've got some communication stuff where we've got all hands communication things come out. I move them to a separate section and I deal with those generally on a Friday. I'd sit there and go and catch up on that sort of stuff on a Friday when I can find it can be a little bit quieter. Holiday improvements. So say you've got holiday and expense approvals, I move them into one place as well. And the reason I do that is then you have, say, 20 expenses to approve. You log into the expense approval system and you deal with all 20 of them one after another. You're not logging in, then going away, and then two hours later logging in, because it's not lean, is it? It's sort of lean technologies. You're going back in and redoing the same thing over and over. Whereas if you can batch them and deal with them, it's quick. And when you start looking at it, you start going, I can do that way, I can do that way, I can do that way. So that's, like I said, that of all of them, that's the one that I've talked to people about so many times. And there's a story in the book of when I did it, the first time I did it, I clicked that button, I get all the CCs, and they all moved. I find I left it on all day. I was tempted to look, but I was immense sort of control. And I went and had a look at the end of the day. And I saw this big list of emails, all with the same title: read, forward, read, forward, all those in front of me. And I thought, oh, what's this? So I looked at the last one and it said, all done. Cheers, thanks for your help. I kind of went, oh, that's good. Kind of thinking, I better read through and check this everything's right. So I went through and looked at it, got through to the beginning of it and looked at it. I thought, yeah, I would absolutely have got involved in it if I'd seen that email. I would have been discussing it. I would have been doing it. Now, I think at the time my ego probably said, well, and even now I still sit there, I think, well, I probably could have got it done a bit quicker or a bit better than the team doing it. But actually, that's rubbish. The team didn't need me to solve that problem. The team didn't need me to get that done. The organisation didn't need me to be spending my time doing that. And it kind of nailed it on as me going, right, that's it. I'm going to use that tool. I'm going to keep on using it. And last year, I was on another podcast with a friend of mine in Shrewsbury, just up the road in Shropshire. And he said that he'd been doing that for a while and he marks it as read. Now, I'd never been brave enough to mark all of them as read. I always had my big list of there's 50, there's 200 CC, and then every so often I archive them off. And then I took the jump to do that and my attention is not diverted to that CC folder like it used to be now. It used to be, I'll quick jump in my half hour when I do the email, right, do my inbox, do that, right. And because there's no little bold thing by the CC saying 50 emails, I don't notice it. And so far, I haven't seen any fires yet. Maybe I'll just wait for them to come.
Yeah, I mean,
So that was an example of one of the things in there. And yeah, if people don't buy the book, if they just do that, that would be great. And I think it would save you time. It would give you less stress, and it would just mean you'll be focusing on your priorities and on your objectives. Which is even if it doesn't save you time, if you're focusing on priorities and objectives of your job, you'll be doing better and it'll be easy.
Well, and that's the thing which I love about books like this one, is that oftentimes we all build our own little hacks, right? Our own little productivity hacks. And we like them, but we keep them to ourselves, and we don't share them with others, and we don't learn from others. So even though the 11 items that you have in your book, people, you may have, you said at the beginning, right? Hey, they're nothing groundbreaking about them. They're just things that work for you. But if they work for one person, they'll probably work for more than one person.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be groundbreaking to save a half an hour a day or 15 minutes a day, or even if it's just a minute, but the aggravation of something, right? I mean, those are all things that we all benefit from. And that's why I love books like this one.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, it's just, thank you for that. It's just, it kind of gives me that boost of yes, that's what I wanted to, that's what I wanted to do. It was that case of, I think sometimes we'll sit there and all of us will find a way to do something. But as you say, you've got your own little list of hacks, your little spreadsheets that you use that you've managed to work out and get something to do something. And you think, well, everyone must know that. Right. I think sometimes I'm the last one who's learned how to do this. And then when you start telling other people about it, they go, oh, wow, cool. And you start, oh, didn't you know? Oh, wow, cool. And you think, well, it's some knowledge that you've built up, or some tool, some experiment you've tried. And like I say, a lot of these things, they're things that I've heard other people say to do. And I thought, well, I'll do them. And they work. I found them work for me. I think the other thing I do say in the book is that I'm not an angel in doing these. I fall off the wagon. But and this time of year, it's a perfect time. People are getting on their health and fitness kind of goals, setting goals for the year, all that sort of thing. And actually, if you're going to do a fitness regime, or productivity is the same for me. Productivity, fitness, it's like yoga. I think I say, if you don't finish being good at yoga. You don't finish, go, right, that's it, I've done it all now. I am the yoga person, I've done it. I can't improve anymore. There's always that little bit more you can stretch. And productivity is the same. But you can always get more productive. But also, every so often, you'll stop doing it. Same as you do with exercise, you'll stop doing it. But it doesn't matter, you start again. And you start again, and then you start gaining those back. And some of these things may not fit for some people. Some of them may be just not be great, or in the role they're in at the moment, they may not be important. Productivity to me is something we can work on all the time. It's that, I don't know about you, but I went time management courses years ago, and I've been on them since, and on presentation courses as well. And you always come away from there going, yeah, I've either learned something new, or more often it reminds you something that you'd learned previously that you'd let fall by the wayside.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully this will be a little booklet. And I don't know if it was because I've got a background screen on. Yeah, it probably won't work unless I put it in front of me. The book is the paperback version is tiny. It'll fit in the back of your jeans pocket. So it makes it very easy to read and easy to carry around and keep with you if you want to. It's even got a picture of me in the back of it. So there you go.
Well, all right. That should be a new question now for your show, for each guest that you come on, right? Because I know you have a series of questions you ask them, and I'd ask them, hey, what's a one productivity hack that you have? So
that's a really good idea. Yeah.
So volume 2 of the book, right? The second edition can now be the additional hacks from all the different guests that you have that come on as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think I asked you at the time was when we started the podcast, I asked for your permission to be able to sort of distill down those interviews into a book, which I did start with the first year. I did get all of I used a product called Otter AI to transcribe. I tried a little bit of that and a little bit of Amazon as well to try and transcribe all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it transcribed it, and then I realized that I can't remember how many 1,000 words each interview was because they were quite long form. And I was sitting there going, oh, geez, I've got to edit that. So that's another one that's kind of gone on the back burner at some point. I do want to do that because, as you say, some of the insights and the conversations are so rich in those interviews that for people who don't consume in this manner, or if they do and they have it as a reminder. But I am writing down now that prod hacks question, which I think I will have in there.
Yeah, and we're the same way. I've had a to-do list now, or an action item on my to-do list for about 2 years to write the project management office hours book, right? I mean, again, just think we've had so many fantastic guests on over the year that if you bottle up just a part of that conversation with Lee Lambert and Peter Taylor and Laura Bernard and so many others that we've had on, just to, to just name a few, it's, boy, I want to write it for me. I want to read the book, even though I was hosting the shows. I don't remember everything we talked about. And to be able to go and revisit.
Got that little thing you can pick up and pull out all of the key items in there and things like that. Yeah, it would be, I'm surprised when you think about the amount of content you can create. My experience of it has been it's actually not that difficult to do. I was quite impressed at the beginning of this show with your fancy intro. I was just like, wow. Oh, if I wasn't so lazy at times, that would be great. And the audio as well as the video and all that. Whereas I've got I use a product called Anchor, and it's the first sort. I think Heist. It's called is the first free bit of intro music that they have on it, and I kind of went, oh, like that. Right, that's it. That's what I'm using, and then I just intro it myself and do it each time, and then use the same things. I've started adding a bit more in there, but I kind of get it's quite interesting on the different approaches and on how you can do it.
Well, the beauty of being live out there now is people can see, right? So one of the camera angles we have is the overhead here in the studio, and over to the side, you can see all the audio equipment. We have show producers, and when we take the recording, it goes back to Atlanta, and they do a master on it and pull out the sound and clean up the audio on everything. And we had hired a marketing team at one point. I didn't create that video, right? The intro video, that was a marketing team that had to come in and put that together. So
that's great.
These are all the things after 4 or 5 years behind the scenes, and we come now out and everybody can see this is what production is, right? This is what happens really when we do the show.
Yeah, it's great. And it's like, I think with mine, it's always been that thing of kind of wanting to, trying to get it to pay for itself, if you like.
Yeah.
Drag it up by its bootstraps. And it's always been, right, what's the freest tool? What's the simplest one? What's the least amount of effort for me to do? But it works at the end of the day. Most of the time, I say my intros and my outros and the little bit of news bit is normally done on a Saturday morning, sat in my kitchen with my phone in front of me, just onto the phone, on straight into the Anchor app. Because actually, when I listen back to it, for me, the quality of it is fine. And I think for anyone out there who's ever thinking about doing it, you pick up an app like Anchor or one of the other ones that are out there, and they're very amazing what we can do now compared to what we could do way back. I've fortunately got a decent mic, a decent computer, and an internet connection, and you're there. And even then, a phone could probably do it half with it.
Yeah, I mean, just think back, Cornelius Fichtner and Andy Kaufman and all those, the people who were doing this 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The evolution that we've had over time with the new technology, and it's certainly made this been easier, but it's a lot of work, right? I mean, I get a lot of people who will ask me, what do you think? Should I start up a podcast? And how much time do you put in it? And I'll tell them, I'm putting in 5+ hours a month on this. It's not just to show up and once and do it. You got to book your guests. You got to prep in advance. You got to do your post show. You got to do your pre-show. You have the show time. I mean, there's a lot of stuff involved, and it's not easy to keep at it. We're in the new year, right? A lot of people have their New Year's resolution. They're going to get fit. They're going to do everything, and by February they stop. Right here we are, 4 or 5 years later on the show. We haven't stopped, right? We keep going.
And I think the thing is, if you get something out of these conversations, then you're going to keep on doing it. And that's what I found. The reason I keep on doing it is not that it's not paying. There's by no way is it paying for me to have a yacht. I certainly haven't picked up the Learjet from our podcasting. Hopefully podcasting does that, give you that opportunity. But you get something out of these conversations. And I'm astounded at the number of people who've said yes. 90% of my people that I've got on the show and booked on the show have gone through LinkedIn and said, hi, I do this little podcast. Here's a version of it. Here's a really good one. So there's Joe, MO Joe on it. It's a really interesting interview. And go have a listen. Tell me what you think. Do you want to come on? These are the questions I asked. It's the same way I approached you, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
And invariably people say yes. And then you get conversations. You sit there going, oh wow. But Eddie Obeng was one who struck me. It was Eddie. I'd seen way back when I was first in project management. We were doing some work with the PMI UK chapter, and I was part of the Midland area team. And I was also looking at, later on, I was looking at the marketing side for that. So doing the newsletter at the time. It was a paper newsletter we used to send out rather than having a website. So that gives you a hint of how long ago it was. We probably did have we probably didn't have a website, thinking right now. Yeah, so it shows you how long ago it was. And Eddie Obeng was like in PM Network and PMI. He was like Dr. Eddie Obeng. And I was thinking, oh, he's a bit of a famous guy, isn't he? And it took me a while to get around to pinging him a message and saying, Eddie, would you like to be on it? And he was brilliant. And he was completely happy to be on the show and everything. So it's if there is anyone who's thinking of doing a podcast, even whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, same for me.
Yeah.
I mean, Dr. Harold Kersner, when he came on, I just sent him a message on LinkedIn and said, hey, I'd love to have you on the show. And the evolution for me has been, I started the show doing the shows for me, right? Kind of my opportunity to be able to learn. But probably halfway through the first season, I realized people were writing me saying, hey, that was great content on that show. Here's what I learned. And I'm no longer they're about me. Right now it's how can I talk to the guests in a certain way that the listeners will find value out of the shows. And because most of the listeners don't have that opportunity to be able to speak to them because they don't have a podcast. They don't have a show to be able to connect to them. So if we can, just Bill Dow, right, was talking about how totally non-project management related, but he teaches tennis lessons to people in wheelchairs, right? Those sorts of inspirational moments where we take us as people and be able to share that may be the inspiration for somebody else to volunteer their time and go help somebody who is in need, right? That's the power of these things, right? This is where I love it. So for you, in your book, The Productivity Hacks, it's that same concept, right? I've got my own hacks. I may pick up something from you. I use Outlook in my own little way, right? But there's somebody else out there who may go out and pick up your book on Amazon and read that thing and say, oh man, I never thought about that. I'm going to go do that. That's for the users. And I think that's ultimately where we get the most bang for these shows now is how we can share within our industry so that one person's successes can maybe be multiplied, right? And then others can benefit from that as well.
Yeah, and I think it's when you have, as a general thing, that getting me, again, with all this, I've always kind of bootstrapped it and getting the name out of the podcast has been quite difficult to get a great number of interaction with my listeners. That's something that I have missed. I haven't seen any of that, a great deal of it. Some, but not a great deal, not as much as I'd like. And it kind of makes you feel, should I do it? Should I not do it? Same with the books. You get some reviews in there. I had one of the reviews of the book, which was quite interesting. But the funniest review of my first book was when someone said it's for, because it's comedy. It's for a particular type of humour. I didn't even get past the second. I gave up after the first chapter. And it's kind of like there was only one chapter. It's kind of like, so it kind of made me chuckle a little. But one of the ones on this one was that someone that suggested that most of these ideas a school kids should know. And you will get some people out there, as I say, who know these things. And then I've had another person review it saying, absolutely brilliant, learned loads from it. So it is where there are so many different people out there who have different experiences of the same thing and can learn it differently. And I think this medium of podcasting can allow us to, you write it in a book, that's great. You do a presentation, that's great. I like these conversations because you can take the conversation another step behind the Wizard of Oz curtains, if you like, of the conversation, and kind of find out and go, yeah, but what made you, how did you learn to do it? What was the reason that you used that tool or whatever? And some people don't even think about why they did what they did. And then when they start thinking about it, they start realizing, well, yeah, that's what I did. And I think one of the questions that comes out of some really interesting things is one that I have is around, what's your biggest screw up from your career, and what did you learn from it? Successes are great and all that, but it's generally in those dark hours that we learn stuff. Maybe some of these tips and tricks can help with. And it's kind of talking about this, the whole thing around COVID and where we've been with that in the last year, and how it made us all completely pivot from what a lot of us going into an office, being with a team, working together, etc., to being immediately remote within a matter of weeks. Even. It was a matter of weeks, and we started working remotely. And I couldn't put together this without putting something in there, so I've included something in there. And it's a little bit about my journey in through lockdown. And last year I was off with stress issues for 5 months, and related to the lockdown. There's other things around it as well, but it was the mental health side of it. I know a lot of us are aware of some of the things that I suffered from in the way that I was dealing with stuff. I've started to change. I've changed that and made a big difference to it. Even literally now, and I don't know if listeners can hear my Mitland, who said, "Yeah, I'll be nice and quiet." He's singing in the other room, nearly at the top of their voice.
That's working from home these days. So that's what happens.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, and one of the big things I found was I used to drive a 40-minute commute, so 40 minutes there, 40 minutes back, and you have a big decompression time, and that kind of you're finishing. Right, okay, dealing, you're processing the conversations you've had, you're remembering what's going on at home, what you have to do, blah, blah, blah. And you kind of get that little zone of decompression. Literally 2 meters from my arm is my door into my dining room now.
Yeah.
And I would finish at work at 5:30, tea's on the table, or dinner, we call it tea in this part of the UK. Dinner's on the table, and my family's there, and all dinner's being prepared, and I'm going to help. But I'm straight into, I moved from Nigel project manager to Nigel the dad and Nigel the husband, like that. And you get no transition. And I think that was one of the biggest difficulties I found, along with video fatigue, performance fatigue, as I was referred to. And I found that really hard, and to try and do that switch quickly.
And we all deal with that, right? I mean, that's everyone's had that same experience around the world, right? It's not even isolated to a city or a state or a country or a province, right? It's everyone in the world.
But the thing is, it's really tiny. That's the thing with that. It's a tiny, that little thing. You don't notice it to start off with, but it's over.
It just keeps adding and adding and adding. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, here we are. Approaching our time as we again, they all go by so fast, and I really enjoyed the session. Hopefully The format was fine for everybody else out there as well. Nigel, I want to thank
the
you.
Live stream worked.
Yeah, it keeps telling me we're still live streaming, so I think it worked.
Excellent.
And I want to thank you for being on the show today. We've got your LinkedIn up on screen right now. Is there anything that you've got coming up that people should be familiar with, or how can people get in touch with you or reach the show?
So the podcast's on all of the usual places, but if you want to go and find the list of it, it's on anchor.fm/Sunday Lunch PM. So you can grab it there, or just nigelcreaser.com, and you can kind of dive out to everything from there. The latest book's up there on my background, for the people who can see.
Yeah.
You can grab a copy of that at Amazon, the digital version. If you've got Amazon, the cheapest way to get it is if you've got Amazon Kindle. If you haven't got, Amazon Unlimited, get a 3-month trial of it. It costs you about 99 pence, or maybe it's free. And then you keep it for 3 months and then cancel it. But you'll be able to download my book and have a read of it. And I get a kick up back on that. Or alternatively, just jump onto Amazon. It's available in Kindle, hardback or paperback, as are the other 2 books as well. The other 2 aren't in hardback, they're just in paperback. I haven't done that conversion yet. And that's it, really. And come along to show if you... and if anyone does buy and read the book and they do enjoy it, please let me know. Reviews, etc. Fantastic.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Nigel. And of course, thank you to all of our listeners. Please be sure to go out to our website. We've got it up there on screen, pmosquad.com/podcast. And you can see all the 94 previous shows we've had before today, with so many fantastic guests over the year. And we have a lot of great guests lined up for this coming year as well. Reminder that the shows are recorded, as Nigel had mentioned, for his show as well. So you can go out there and catch everything on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, whatever your platform of choice is. Please be a subscriber so that you don't miss any of these shows and all the fantastic guests that we have come on and get all the wisdom that they're sharing with us out there. Of course, thank you to our sponsors, the PMO Squad and the PMO Leader. The PMO Leader is a global community of PMO and project management leaders sharing and exchanging ideas without the pressure of certifications and all the other things that many other communities have out there. So it's a great place to be able to get information and sharing and networking and exchanging with other leaders in our great community. That's it for now. Office hours are closed. Until next time, I'm PMO Joe, and you've been listening to Project Management Office Hours.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Project Management Office Hours with PMO Joe. You're not alone in your project management journey. We're here to help you achieve your goals. Subscribe to Project Management Office Hours on your favorite podcast platform to catch all of our episodes and hear industry leaders share their story and secrets to success.